So you've decided to build a brand new website for your business. Congratulations, that's a big step and a big decision. But before you actually jump into the building process, there are a few things that you need to consider. And in today's video, I'm going to explain what those things are. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ana Lea. I am the owner and designer behind Lea Design Studio, where I create custom Squarespace templates, courses, and resources to help you look great online. And here on this channel, I share design, tech, marketing, and business tips to help you work smarter, not harder. So if that is something that you're interested in, hit that subscribe button. And now, without further ado, let's dive into today's video. So one of the first things that you're going to have to consider before you even start building your website is, what is the primary goal of your website? This will help you structure your website in a way that will actually help you reach your business goals, and it will actually lead to more conversions on your website. So you will be able to measure how effective your website is by keeping those goals at the forefront of your mind. Now, ideally, your website goals should align with your business goals. So for example, if you want to make $50,000 in your business or $100,000 in your business in your first year, you need to know how you're going to get there, and then you need to know how your website is going to help you get there. So in this case, if you're a service provider, obviously, you are going to want to promote your services, and one of the primary goals is going to be to ask people to actually book a discovery call with you. But you should also have a secondary goal in mind, because not everybody will be ready to take that first step, and they will want something, you will want something to give them something to do if they're not ready for that big step. So the best case scenario is to actually invite them to join your email list. Once you know what goals you want your website to achieve, you can easily understand what features you need to implement on your website to help you reach those goals. So for example, if you know that you want to book discovery calls and you know you want to grow your email list, then you know that you're going to need a contact form or an online calendar, and you're also going to need a email marketing platform that's going to help you collect those email addresses and actually stay in touch with your subscribers. You will also probably want to integrate Google Analytics or another form of analytics software that tells you how many people are visiting your website, which pages they're clicking on, what action they're taking, and is your website actually helping you achieve that goal. The next thing that you want to consider is who your ideal client is. This is important because understanding who your ideal client is will help you make a website that appeals to them, which then in turn makes them more inclined to actually reach out to you or subscribe to your newsletter. Now, I have a video that talks about how to make sure that your website appeals to your ideal clients that I will link to somewhere at the top of the screen that you can go and watch. But just know that when you're talking about your ideal client, the primary thing that you want to do is focus on the problem that you're solving, or rather the problem that they're experiencing, rather than on the demographics of your ideal client. Those can come into play later, and I explain why in the video that I mentioned earlier. So once those two strategic elements are out of the way, the next thing that you actually need to consider are the practical things that you're going to need. So you're going to need graphics that are going to go onto your website. That would be images of you, backdrop images that support your primary goal and your brand, that make your audience feel more connected to your brand. You're going to need graphics. If you have any brand patterns, you're going to want to prepare those. If you have custom brand icons, you will want to prepare those. Now, if you don't have all of those elements, it's fine. For example, if you don't have a logo, that does not mean that you now have to go and design your logo. You can just start with a simple text-based logo, and depending on your website platform, you can probably just get away with my logo hack, which is simply just using a different font for your logo or your business name to serve as a temporary placeholder logo. What I do recommend that you have ready is images of you, because people want to get to know the person behind the brand and people want to buy from people. So using your own images is the best way to actually show your personality and the person behind the brand. Now, you don't have to go crazy and have 50 different images of you in different locations and whatnot. A few simple images that you can use on your homepage, your about page, and even your contact page is more than enough to get you started. You'll also want to consider a few images that are a good fit for your industry. So for example, if you're a photographer, you'll probably want to showcase your work. So using images from your previous photo shoots throughout your website is a good way to give your potential clients a sense of your style, aesthetic, and the way you take photos. Similarly, if you're an interior designer, you'll probably want to use photos from the homes you've styled before working with previous clients. If you haven't worked with clients yet, then you would use those types of images to speak to your ideal client and to actually showcase what you're about. It wouldn't make much sense if you're an interior designer and your website is littered with pages of puppies because you really love puppies. I love puppies too, but that doesn't really tell them anything. It can give them the wrong impression on what the website is about. Now, ideally, you'll want to prepare a few images that can span the full width of the page, because those work really well as images that go at the very top of every page, which is called the hero area. And you can also use them if you have images that have sort of a blurred background. You can use them as backgrounds for other sections on your page. And then you'll also want to consider using something like square or rectangular images that are around 1,000 pixels in width that you can use to represent your services and other offers that you might have on your website. The next thing that you want to prepare before you jump into building your website is obviously the content for your website. This is again where that strategy comes into play that we talked about in the very first step, because once you know what the website goals are and what you're trying to achieve, you will have a better idea of what pages you need to include on your website. So obviously you're going to need your homepage, your about page, and if you're a service provider, you're probably going to want to work with me page. It's also a good idea to have a contact page so that people can actually get in touch with you. Now, I have another video that talks about the absolute 5 pages you must have in order to launch your website that I will link to up here on the screen again. So I recommend you go watch that, because it gives you also an explanation of what should go on each page and what is the purpose of each page on that website. Now, why I say you need copy before you design, because it's a lot easier to start designing and laying out elements on a page once you have copy ready to go than if you were simultaneously trying to write the copy, find the right image, lay it all out on the page. It gets confusing. It's a lot. It can be overwhelming, especially if you're not a professional designer. So it's a lot better to just have the copy ready and then dive into the design. Next, consider additional content that you might have to include on your website. Do you have any testimonials that can back up your claims, that can actually speak to your expertise and showcase that you can get results for your clients? Now, it's okay if you don't have them yet, but it's not a bad idea to actually collect those and have those ready before you start building your website. If you plan on launching with a blog or give people something to read when they show up to your website, it's also a good idea to prepare that blog content before you actually start building your website. Now, you don't need it to actually launch, but if you want to, it's always a good idea to have some blog content there so that your website visitors actually have something to do on your website rather than just come, check it out, say, oh, okay, cool, and then peace out. Another thing that you'll want to prepare is your mood board or your inspiration sites. Again, it's a good idea to have a sort of general direction and aesthetic that you're going for when you're designing with the website, rather than going in blind and making design decisions on the fly, because that will just make the whole process unnecessarily long and it will take you a lot longer to actually launch your website. If you have everything ready to go, you know which fonts you want to use, you know which colors you want to use, you know which photos you have for each page, then that design process takes a lot less, even when you're DIYing, than if you're just trying to scramble everything together at the very moment of building your website. Another thing that you'll want to have ready and consider before you actually start building your website is what legal pages you actually need on your website. Now, as far as I understand it, and I'm not a legal expert, is you absolutely need to have privacy policy on your website. This is because you need to show that your website is compliant with numerous privacy protection laws all over the world. Whether you're in the States and in Canada, in Europe, no matter where you go, there are several privacy protection laws in place, and if you don't have them, your website is not compliant, which leaves you open to various lawsuits, and trust me, you want to avoid those. Beyond that, you might, depending on your industry, you might need disclaimers or any other type of legal pages that you might need. For that, you will want to consult your lawyer or a legal expert and ask him what actually do you need to have on your website. Another thing that you also probably want to include is your terms of service, so that you, again, avoid any misunderstandings and any potential lawsuits waiting to happen because somebody thought you were going to do this and your terms of service actually state this and they didn't read it. It's just a mess and it's better to avoid it. So be sure to talk to a legal consultant, expert, lawyer, whomever you have, to actually tell you what legal pages you need to have on your website. You will want to have those ready to go before you actually start building. And then finally, the last two things you're going to need is your domain name, obviously, because you need a domain name for people to be actually able to access your website. And you'll also need your physical business address. This is actually a legal requirement in many states and in many countries around the world, not just for your website and things like your privacy policy, but also in order to comply with your email list, and so that you can be compliant with the CAN-SPAM Legal Act, which basically requires you to have a physical business address at the bottom of every email. Now, again, this doesn't need to be your actual home address. If you're working from home, you can go and get a business address for like a few bucks somewhere. I know that there are services who provide that type of service, so it's worth doing a little bit of investigation and checking out what can you actually do in that regard. And now, if you're actually wondering what should you include on your website to make it appeal to your ideal clients, I do have a video that you can go and watch next. And if you're looking for more help on how to actually build your website, I have a free workshop that walks you through the entire process step by step. I'll leave a link to it in the description below, so be sure to check that out. That's it for today, and I'll see you next time.